Data is a raw facts, figures and statistics, whereas information is a processed data. By using some electronic device, when you process the data, then that can be called as electronic data processing system. Data processing is a series of actions or work it converts data into information. After getting information, we have to store the data for future purpose, as well as we have to store the information for future purpose. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Today, we are going to start with new chapter, that is database concept. This chapter having highest weightage in the annual exam. With that, it is easy chapter also. If you understand the concept, then easily you can write the answers on your own words, then also you will get full marks on this chapter. Whereas for the remaining chapters, especially for programming chapters, you have to learn the concept as well as how the prediction in the book they are given the same way you have to write. Whereas on this chapter, if you want, you can write the answers on your own words, then also you will get full marks on this chapter. The total weightage of this chapter in the annual exam is 14 marks. Out of 14 marks, here in part A, they will go to ask 2 questions. In part A, especially for 1 marks, they will go to ask 2 questions. In part B, they will ask 1 question. Then in part D, for 5 marks, they will ask 2 questions. For 5 marks, 2 questions. Totally 14 marks weightage in the annual exam. When they come on today's topic, today you will learn regarding the introduction of database concept, then application of database, it means that where we are using the database concept, then the origin of data, how it is created, then evaluation of database, then data processing cycle, with that database terms. Regarding that, you will come to know on today's class. First, we will discuss about database. What do you mean by database? Why we require this database? Where we are using this database? When they come on database, here it is a collection of related tables. It is a collection of related tables, we can say. For example, if I am going to consider one character here, only one character, for example N. The collection of characters can be called as field. The collection of characters can be called as field. For example, N-A-M-E, name, one attribute. Field, we can say, otherwise we can say it as attribute also. Character, the collection of characters can be called as field. The collection of field here can be called as record, or we can call it as tuple also. The collection of fields can be called as record. The collection of records can be called as table. The collection of record can be called as table. And the collection of related tables can be called as database. See, for example, N. If I am going to consider one table, here on this, if I am going to write N, then it is a character. Then collection of characters, name. Then it can be called as field or attribute. The collection of these fields, one is name, then I am going to take marks 1, then marks 2, then marks 3. This can be called as here record. For example, X is the name, marks 10, 20, 30. The collection of these values, these fields can be called as record. The collection of the information like this type of records, X, Y, Z, 10, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80. The collection of these values or in the collection of records can be called as table. And the collection of related tables can be called as database. Here you are not supposed to say only the collection of tables. Then it is not a database. It is a collection of related tables. For example, I am going to consider one student table. There we have student information like their name, father's name, which are the subjects, how much fees they are paid. Then regarding that information, that table can be called as student table. One more table we want to take, for example, employee table, especially college employees table. On that table, you have what is the faculty name, the qualification, experience, how much salary they are getting. Regarding that, we have some attributes, and that is one more table. This teacher will teach particular subject to that student. Then it is a collection, it is a relation between employee as well as table. That collection of or related tables can be called it as database. For example, one more example I am going to consider. Consider one student table and one more is in the hospital, one more patient table is there. One is student and one more is hospital patient table. These two cannot be called as database. There must and should be a relation. Then only it can be called as database. Database is a related collection of related tables can be called as database. Whereas it is a collection of logically related data organized in a way that data can be easily accessed and managed and updated. Whatever content in that database that can be easily accessed. It means that whichever record, whichever data we want, that easily we can take, easily we can update, easily we can maintain, that can be called as database. You can see that database is a collection of related tables, then also it is correct. Otherwise, it is a collection of logically related data organized in a way that data can be easily accessed as well as managed as well as updated. That also call it as database. Now, where we are using, that is application of database, now we will come to know. Where exactly these type of database are used. If you want, it is used in banking for storing the customer information as well as employee information, which are the credit cards, which are the debit card. Regarding that, all the information they will maintain. It is used in banking and water meter billing. What is the name of the customer? When is the expiry date? All those information, the table reading, RR reading, the date, everything, the amount that can be stored in that is water meter billing. Then rail and airlines, there also to maintain all the information, which are the train nowadays and when it will depart, everything. In the same way, airlines also, which are the flight now we have, when it will depart, all the information also will stored in the database format only. And it is used in colleges, for example, student database. There to maintain student information, faculty information, as well as to maintain salary information regarding the employees, all those also maintained in database. That is, it is used in colleges. Credit card transaction, like which are the credit cards, what is the number, what is the expiry date, everything that will maintain in the format of tables. It is used in credit card transaction, finance, that to maintain amount, for which person we are given the amount, when he will pay the amount, how much EMI he has to pay. Regarding that, to maintain the information, there also we are using this database. For sales, for telecommunication, manufacturing, human resources, these are the applications of database. In the exam, you will get a question for 2 marks. Write down the applications of database. On that time, you can write any field like bank, railways, wherever, whichever field you want, you can write. There we are using database concept. These are the few applications of database. Next, we'll discuss about the origin of data. That is, what do you mean by data and what do you mean by information? Why we require this information? Whereas, data is a collection of raw facts, figures and statistics. For example, if I want to prepare a sambar, consider I want to prepare a sambar. For that sambar, whatever ingredients we are taking, that can be called as data. Data is a raw facts, figures and statistics. For example, if I want to construct a building, then whatever item I am taking, all those items can be called as data. After constructing the building, that building can be called as information. Information. Data is a raw facts, figures and statistics, whereas information is a processed data. Already I told you, if I want to prepare a sambar, then for that sambar, whatever ingredients I am taking, that ingredients can be called as data. After preparing that sambar can be called as information. Then we have data processing also. What do you mean by this data processing? Data processing is nothing but it is a series of actions. It converts data into information. For example, if I want to prepare a sambar, first step, I have to keep the bowl, I have to switch on the stove, on that we have to put dal. That are series of actions. No. After preparing that sambar can be called as information. Whereas data processing is nothing but it is a series of actions or work, I can say. It will convert data into information. Already I told you, data is a raw facts. For example, if I am going to write 123, on that time, whether it is a information or it is a data, this does not going to give any specific meaning. Whether it 123 is a bus number or phone number or any card number, it will not going to give any specific meaning. Then it can be called as data. Data is a raw facts, raw material. Whatever thing you are going to enter to the computer, that can be called as data. After processing, whatever results you are getting, that can be called as information. Here, data does not give specific meaning. For example, if I am going to write register number equals 123, then it can be called as information because information is having specific meaning, whereas data does not have specific meaning. Whereas data is a collection of facts, figures and statistics. It is a collection of facts, figures, statistics which can be processed to produce meaningful information. Whereas information is a processed data. It is a processed data. Whatever thing you will enter to the computer, that can be called as data. After processing, whatever result you are getting, that can be called as information. Electronic data processing means by using some electronic device, when you process the data, then that can be called as electronic data processing system. Generally, we will discuss one by one. Consider, I am going to give one work. From morning to till evening, you have to do particular type of problem from morning first hour to evening last hour. Then what happens in manual? That on that time you will get tired. Is it no? The tiredness will become when you do it in the manual data processing. For example, the same work I am going to give to the electronic device. For example, computer. From morning to till evening, then also it will work. Is it no? It will not going to get tired. Is it no? Then accuracy wise, if I am going to consider the accuracy wise, first time when I am going to give the work, on that time you will do it accurately. As on time goes on that time at the last hour, last minute, that accuracy will reduce. Is it no? In manual. Whereas in electronic, the accuracy will be perfect from morning to till evening. And in manual, we need paperwork to do all the transaction, to all the work, we need papers. Whereas in electronic, we does not require any paperwork. That is, paperwork is very less, we can see. As well as when they come on accuracy wise, then time consumption wise. If I am going to consider time consumption, then in manual, it takes lot of time to perform specific task. Whereas in electronic data processing, the time consumption is less compared to manual. See the difference? See, the volume of data which can be processed is limited in a desired time. Whereas in computerized, the volume of data which can be processed can be very large. Only limited work I can able to perform. Whereas in electronic, I can work large amount of data. And here, manual data processing requires large quantity of paper. In manual, we require paperwork. Whereas here, paper, the resource of less amount of paper is used. Only less minimum amount of paper we require here. Or we can say less amount of paperwork is required there. Whereas the speed and accuracy wise, the job is limited here. The speed as well as accuracy, as on time increases, the speed as well as accuracy is also reduces. Whereas here, the accuracy will be more here, accuracy as well as whatever the speed is more here. Then, labor cost is high. In manual, we require large amount of persons, large amount of peoples we required. That's why the cost is also more. Whereas here, the labor cost is economical. For example, I want to construct a particular work or I want to do particular work. By human beings, if I want to do the same work, then it takes lot of person to do the work as well as time also required. By using electronic devices, I can able to do the same work within few days or within few seconds I can able to perform. That's why in manual, the cost wise it is high, more. Whereas here, the cost is economical. in electronic data processing. Next, the storage media is always paper. Whatever transaction we are done, that will stored in a sheet of paper. Everything we are written in a sheet of paper. Whereas here, we are using, in electronic, we are using the secondary storage device for storage purpose. It means that here I can able to store the data in secondary devices like hard disk, floppy disk, pen drive. There I can store for future purpose. Whereas here in manual we are required paperwork, or the storage media is also paper. Whereas here I can use hard disk, floppy disk, pen drive. There I can store my information, and whenever I want, there I can able to access. This is a major important question. Usually they will ask these type of question for 5 marks in the annual exam. Once again, I am to recall, manual means manushya madodu, electronic means by using electronic device we are performing. Here you can just analyze and then answer. What about time consumption in manual? Time consumption will be more, whereas in electronic time consumption is less. Then accuracy wise, in manual accuracy is less, whereas in electronic accuracy is more. Then cost wise, manual cost is more, electronic cost is less. And here we require paperwork, there we does not require any paperwork. And here the storage media is also paper, whereas in electronic the storage media is secondary storage devices. Okay, these are the major difference between manual data processing as well as electronic data processing. Next, we will discuss about data processing cycle. This is also very important. In the annual exam, this type of question they will ask for 5 marks. Write or explain data processing cycle. In the same way how they asked it, explain the difference between manual and electronic data processing. In the same way, this type of question you will get, that is explain, briefly explain the data processing cycle. Then, which are the stages here that you have to explain briefly one by one. First stage, data collection. Now already you come to know data processing. Data processing is nothing but it is a series of work, or I can say actions. It converts data into information. If I want to prepare a sambar, then ingredients can be called as data. The actions, work, whatever I am following there. I want to keep the stove or switch on the stove. Above that I want to keep the bowl. Then water, dal, sambar powder, salt, everything, whatever thing I want to put. All those items can be called as data. Whether the actions, it converts data into information, that actions can be called as data processing. If I want to perform any data processing, then I have to follow some stages. The first stage itself, data collection. For the processing, whatever data we require, that data we have to collect first. For example, if I want to prepare a sambar, for that sambar, I have to collect all the ingredients. Is it no? That is the first step. While collecting the information or the data or raw material, that raw material may be available within the organization or I have to purchase from the outside. The main thing, first I have to collect all the ingredients. That is data collection. For example, I am going to consider the vegetable. That is one of the raw material. For example, I want to put that into the sambar directly as it is. Whatever vegetable I took, that as it is, I am not going to keep it on the sambar, is it no? First I have to clean that, then I have to cut that, then later on I have to put on the sambar, is it no? That means whatever data we want to process, the processing data has to be collected first. It is a process of systematic gathering of data from various resources, where exactly the data is present. From various places, I have to collect the data, and it has to be properly cleaned, recorded, observed, then it has to be input for the processing. First stage, data collection is completed. This is the first step. Then second step, we have to input the data for the processing. Whereas in the sambar preparation, first step, I collected all the ingredients, I cleaned and I arranged it. Then whatever ingredients I collected, that I will put on the process. That is data input. The raw data is put into the computer, where by using keyboard, mouse or any other input devices. Then what do you mean by input devices? Through this, we can able to give the command to the computer. Users computer ge kodo information, data na adina yav device mulka kodtare adana input device anta kariತೀವಿ. Then output device means here the information which we are getting from the computer, that can be called as information, is it no? The devices where I am getting the information from the computer, that can be called as output devices. Whereas here whatever data we are collected, that we will input to the computer, is it no? Through input devices like keyboard, mouse or any other devices or scanner, microphone or digital camera, that can be called as data input. This is the second stage. Then third stage is data processing. Data processing is a series of actions or work. It converts data into information. It's a work. Actions. It converts data into information. In sambar preparation itself, first I collected all the ingredients. That can be called as data collection. Then afterwards I will put that for the processing. That is data input. Then I will process one by one. Okay, first I have to switch on the stove. Second, I have to keep the above that. Then I have to put water. Then dal. Afterwards, vegetable. That is actions, work can be called as data processing. Then the next stage, we have data storage. After getting information, we have to store the data for future purpose, as well as we have to store the information for future purpose. Data and information should be stored in a memory so that it can be accessed later. Both input data as well as output information, both we have to store for future purpose. That is storage, data storage. It means that first I collected, that is data gathering. Second, input. Third one, processing. After processing, I have to store the data for future purpose. Then afterwards, I will get the output, the result. I getting sambar, final output, that's a sambar. Here, the result obtained after processing the data must be presented to the user in user understandable form. On which way the user want, on that way we will present the output. For example, the sambar itself I am going to consider. How the user want, on that way we will present that. Okay, for example, consider in a computerized format, there some users want the data has to be displayed in paragraph format. Some users want the information has to be displayed in table format. Whichever way the user want, on that way we will present that output. The output should be represented or kept to the user, how the user want. Whether some of them want in chat format, some of them want in table format, some of them want paragraph format. Which way the user want, on that way we will produce the output. Then communication is the last stage. In this, computers nowadays have communication ability which increase their power. It has to be in the format of communication format. Whereas in previous slide, you have studied first step, collection, then we'll input, then afterwards we are process. Whereas in the next step, data storage, then output, then finally the communication. These are the few stages of data processing. Here in the exam, you have to write, explain briefly data processing cycle. Then the first step itself, you have to mention what do you mean by data processing. Then afterwards, all the stage you have to explain on your own words, then also you will get the marks. And here in this diagram, we are given, first you have to collect the data, then afterwards we have to input the data, then process. While processing, it has to be stored both input data as well as output information. Then we'll get the output. It has to be in communication format. This is a major question. Whereas on this class, you have studied regarding difference between manual data processing as well as electronic data processing. In the same way, data processing cycle, that is also a very important question. Next, we'll discuss about database terms. Which are the terms in database nowadays we are using? One by one we'll discuss. The first one is file. File is a basic storage unit in a computer system. It is one basic storage unit we can say. Then database. Already I told you it is a collection of logically related tables. Already I given one example. See, this is character. The collection of characters can be called it as field or attribute. The collection of fields can be called it as record or tuple. The collection of records can be called it as here files or table. The collection of related table can be called as database. See, whereas file is a basic storage unit in a computer system. Database is a collection of related data organized in a way that data can be accessed easily, managed, updated. And a table is a collection of data element organized in terms of rows and columns. In this we have information. Consider this is a table. Here that information name, marks 1, marks 2. Here, for example, here I'm going to take it as student table. On this student table, we have all the information. Table is a collection of data elements, or I can say it's a collection of records also we can say. Then record is a single entry in the table. The entire information, for example, name I'm going to take Anu, marks 10, 20. This entire information can be called as record, or I can say it as tuple also. Then tuple records are also called as tuple. Tuple or record both are same. Then field, each column is identified by distinct header called attribute or a field. See, header, field, the collection of fields can be called as table, already I told you. Whereas here the field is nothing but here the each heading in a table. See, this is also one field or attribute, this is also one attribute, or this is also one attribute, or I can say it as field also. Domain, what do you mean by this domain? The collection of values in a single column is called as domain. This entire column information can be called as domain. Then an entity is an object such as table or a forms. These are the few. One is file, database, then tables, records, tuples, fields, domain name, entity name. Now we'll discuss with one diagram here. See, each heading, or we call it as attribute. And this relation, this employee is nothing but table here. See, this is one attribute, employee ID, first name, last name, salary, all these headings can be called as attribute. And each value under each table, the entire row information can be called as record or tuple. Record or tuple. This is one record. See, this is record 1, and this is record 2, and this is record 3, and this is record 3. 1, 2, 3, and this is 4. Okay, now the entire value in one particular column, that can be called as domain. Now is it clear? This is some basic word you have to learn in this DBMS. Then you have studied regarding what do you mean by data, what do you mean by information, what do you mean by data processing. Then which are the stages under data processing cycle, the difference between manual and electronic data processing. Then what do you mean by relation, what do you mean by table, record, tuple, field, domain, as well as entity. Okay, next class we will meet with one more concept of the same chapter. Thank you for all of you.